Now to that breakthrough in talks to end the conflict in Tigray. The Ethiopian government and Tigrayan rebels have agreed to end fighting that's killed tens of thousands of people. The deal will see rebels giving up their light weapons within a month and a detailed reintegration program. They've agreed for the Ethiopian government to expand its work with humanitarian agencies to get much needed aid into Tigray. Federal forces will take control of airports and will rebuild infrastructure and restore public services.
Two parties in the Ethiopian conflict have formally agreed to the cessation of hostilities, as well as to systematic, orderly, smooth, and coordinated disarmament, restoration of law and order, restoration of services, unhindered access to humanitarian supplies, protection of civilians, especially women, children, and other vulnerable groups, among other areas of agreement.
And that's, of course, the former Nigerian President Olusegun Obasanjo, who is one of the people who mediated that peace agreement. A remarkable development, really, given that it happened fairly quickly and rather unexpectedly. Well, for more on this, let's speak to Arise East Africa correspondent Mark Bichachi, who is monitoring developments for us in Nairobi. Good to see you, Mark. So a breakthrough in the conflict. Do you believe it'll hold, or is it too early to say?
I think definitely it's too early to say, and the reason why it's too early to say is because this conflict has gone on for quite a while. There's been a lot of negotiations around it, but also it's important to note that this has been marked with a lot of claims of war crimes. It goes into the basics of Ethiopian politics, where previously the Tigray had held huge sway over the government. The appointment of Prime Minister Abiy disturbed that particular precedent. So there is a lot underlying these particular issues. So is it a momentous occasion? Yes, it is. But we need to be hopefully cautious because we do not quite know how this is going to play out when it is applied.
But I mean, how much of a surprise is it that they signed not so much a cessation of hostilities, but a peace agreement which goes way further than a ceasefire?
Well, the surprise is quite big, given one, the amount of time it's taken, which is just below 10 days, and also the length of the conflict. So it is definitely a surprise to many, but it is a welcome surprise because we know that the Tigrayan community has been suffering, not being able to access humanitarian aid. The internet and various telecommunication capacities have been curtailed in that region. We do not have real-time reporting from that region. So yes, this is definitely a surprise. It is definitely a welcome surprise, but the proof of this particular pie is going to be in the eating.
Well, you're absolutely right on that, because I was going to talk to you about the implementation. I mean, because there are a lot of questions left unanswered in that agreement, as far as I can see, because one of the major articles, apart from agreeing a ceasefire, is the demobilization of TPLF forces. Does it mean, or does it seem like the TPLF have conceded a lot?
Well, the TPLF definitely has conceded a lot of ground, and even the statement when the TPLF spokesman was saying that basically they have had to give up a lot to ensure that their ethnic Tigrayans are not suffering, because what the Ethiopian government has been accused of doing is blocking any kind of humanitarian aid and using the suffering of the people as a weapon of war. So definitely the Tigrayan forces have been forced to give up a lot more than what they hoped to give up for, in the hope that the people of the Tigrayan area are going to receive a lot of aid. Now, will the Tigrayan people be willing to set down their arms and basically lose a lot of the freedoms they've exercised in the federal system of Ethiopia? Will that be possible? I'm not quite sure, because remember, this is a conflict that is not just 2 years old in terms of it actually happening, but this is the ethnic diversity of Ethiopia and the differences therein playing out as it has done since probably since the death of Haile Selassie. So this is quite something to watch. It is something to look at the history of the country and really see where this is going to head.
But I mean, reading from what you're saying, if it appears like this is a capitulation on the part of Tigrayan forces, is this therefore a victory for the Ethiopian government?
Definitely, where Prime Minister Abiy sits, he is very comfortable. A lot of what I have seen that has come out of this particular agreement is in favor of the federal government. It is in favor of the Prime Minister, and it is going to play out. If you look at the long-term politics of the country, it's going to play out in favor of the federal government. So definitely, this is a victory by and large for Prime Minister Abiy. But is it a loss for the Tigrayan people? Not exactly, because they have not lost their sovereignty. They have not lost the federal way in which things are administered, but they have lost their military capacity, which was, by the way, a very big part of the Tigrayan power, not just in terms of their numbers, but because their military had been trained, was experienced. And let's remember that until Ethiopia got support from the West, the Tigrayan army was doing quite well, and the Tigrayans were also high-ranking officials of the Ethiopian army. So they will be losing their military capacity, but that does not necessarily mean that they will lose their political clout.
And Mark, might there be elements that are outside this peace process that are powerful enough to disrupt things? Eritrea, for example, because, I mean, not much has been said about Eritrea's role in this conflict. Are you concerned that if peace is forged between Addis and Mekele, Eritrea might seek to undermine it briefly?
Well, you know, this is really the elephant in the room. One, that Eritrea was not involved in these peace negotiations from the beginning. And then number two, the fact that Eritrea has been accused, the Eritrean forces have been accused of the worst atrocities in this particular war. So will Eritrea agree to this particular peace deal? We don't know, because as we know, Eritrea is a dictatorship. The leader there is known to do whatever and however he wants to do things. So this is a bit of a wait and see, because there's no particular way of predicting how Eritrea and the other interested parties are going to behave in this particular scenario. It is the hope of the African Union that the decision of the African Union binds Eritrea, but given the history of Eritrea and the way it's a reclusive nation, we do not quite know how they will respond to this particular reality.
Mark, thank you very much indeed. Comprehensive update there from Mark Bichachi, who's Arise East Africa correspondent, and he was talking to me from Nairobi.